quickly introduce myself before I get started. My name is Olivianne Iriarte, and I am a fourth-year graphic design major with minors in global fashion studies, photography, and art. I had the pleasure of working on my honors project this semester with Professor Daryl Smith. It has been such an incredible opportunity that I am very excited to share with you all today. I just wanted to give a quick thank you to him for his guidance and support, as well as spending countless hours going through this project. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So the title of my semester project is Realities Unseen. Just to give some context into what the presentation is showcasing, I will be presenting from pages of my process book, which I designed throughout these 14 weeks, and it holds the project from start to finish. This process book is about 150 pages in total, so I decided to select spreads from the book to present from for today. Here is a quick mock-up just to show the aesthetic of the project, as well as how a few of the spreads will look once the book is printed. So getting into what Realities Unseen is all about. For this project, I selected 5 terms that would be presented through their own visual exploration: patience, resilience, transformation, reinvention, and unpredictability. Each of these terms not only embodies a connection to the effects of drastic change, but it also embodies a connection to the capabilities of humans during a time of crisis. And my goal as a designer is to allow people to escape the reality of the world and fall into these designs that connect to their experiences and emotions. Ironically, 2020 represents perfect vision. And the purpose in this project is to bring visualization to a time where we can't see clearly. So to highlight the strength of human capabilities with a juxtaposition to the jarring struggles that we're sharing as communities. And although there is negativity at this time, there still is this slight positivity that exists, and it can be very difficult to find, but there is resilience, patience, transformation, the ability to live in the face of unpredictability and to reinvent at the snap of a finger that exists within each of us. And we're doing all this while watching our environments change as the unknown is at the forefront. And there are aspects of us that are still standing, still persevering. So the whole context behind Realities Unseen is that our actual realities might remain unseen behind closed doors, but they are shared by these 5 elements. So this is the table of contents that shares the exploration that I chose to apply to each term. Patience is a poster series, transformation a card series, reinvention a collage series, unpredictability a t-shirt series, and resilience a multimedia series. So these are the elements of design that I worked into each word. And here we have some of my photography, and through the entire presentation and project, you will see a lot of photography and images that have been taken by me, as well as my writing. And these are specifically images that are incorporated into portions of the project, so you will see them later on as well. The first section that I will be discussing today is patience. And within the process book, I start off each section with a small explanation on my thought process in selecting this word in relation to the pandemic. So for patience, it's a word that many of us have had to add to our vocabulary in recent times. And it can be very difficult right now to experience patience, especially when the unknown is at the forefront of each day. In my writing, I specifically reference this concept of watching it envelop within ourselves as we witness the world come to a complete pause. And behind closed doors, we're all experiencing these internal battles and external battles that are really carrying us through this time. So the word patience can be applied to so many aspects of the current climate, but what really has resonated with me is the patience that developed within ourselves and with ourselves. So during the past few months, many of us really had no choice but to spend time alone, being forced to better understand who we are. And in that time, we've really attempted to tolerate the events of the world being completely out of our control. On the right here is some photography that you will see showcased in the design of this series. I will explain a little bit more in depth. So before I show the final design, just a little bit of a description on my thought process to give some background and context. For the visual exploration of patients, I decided to showcase the representation of the human form through photography and paint. I highlighted the features of the human body, creating this connection between the self and unprecedented times. And this introduction of paint is used to visualize this added component of dismay, since it embodies a medium that requires patience. And paint can be a difficult medium to work with if you've ever experienced it. It can be really hard to control if you put too much down too quickly or too heavily. It can create a lot of chaos on the canvas. So it involves a lot of layers that are added with each stroke. And this exhibits a connection between what we as humans are experiencing at this current time. So, at a time of silence and dismay, we're sitting with ourselves, unraveling these layers, and really trying to understand how to carry ourselves through each day with ease. So, I chose to design a 23 by 34-inch poster series for this term to tell a story in the process. I photographed a very close friend of mine, using her as a subject to display patience through body language. And going into how the posters were created, I printed photographs onto vellum, adding layers of paint and scanning them into a document to create an added element of texture. And there is this introduction of neon green into this series, which is very significant in its meaning to realities unseen as a whole. It can embody happiness, positivity, clarity, energy, and optimism. And these are words that many cannot connect with at this time or are struggling to connect with. So the bright color exists among this black and white to act as a highlight to the slight connection of positivity that Realities Unseen is really working to project. So you can see here that it involves a lot of photography that I will show the actual images of in the next slide, as well as different handmade components that I incorporated into the creation of the posters. And as I mentioned, I wanted to tell a story through this poster series. So it starts off with the word patience and moves towards an opportunity to connect, and finally with yourself. So here we have the photography that I took of my friend, really again, trying to highlight patience through body language, referencing the hard days and easy days with her expressions. And these are images that showcase the handmade elements that are a part of the poster. So this is the photography that I printed out onto the vellum, placing it onto a watercolor pad and painting over it, again, scanning it into the poster series to be a part of the design. And here's another element that was used for the poster, again, bringing in that vellum, printing images, layering the pieces, adding paint and printed type as well. This is the first poster up close. On the left side of the poster, the quote reads, "Maybe that is why life is so precious. No rewind or fast forward, just you, the unknown, and patience." And this is the poster that contains the previous handmade element that I just showed. I also placed the letters TIE in green to reference the story that is being tied together. Then we have the second poster, which highlights an opportunity to connect, and it has more writing referencing the internal battles and external battles as we face the patience within ourselves. The handmade element scanned here is that series of 6 images that was shown in the opening spread. And lastly, we have the final poster of the series that states "with yourself," highlighting 2020, and my writing below that reads, "But above all else, the patience we have developed with ourselves is what has carried us through the discomfort." So here I incorporated the photography from the first 2 posters into the final design of the third. The next series of Realities Unseen is Transformation. So during the first few weeks of the pandemic, Boston had turned into a complete ghost town. And I was really mesmerized by the ways in which life had been completely removed from how it used to be. So here I was standing in a city that embodied the hustle of life, and it now represented this complicated climate that was arising. And life to me is supposed to involve connection. And I think for a lot of us, relationships, interaction, and the removal of those things really conveyed a deeper meaning in my eyes. So I had visited a lot of sites that had been a part of my daily routine: the Orange Line, Tate Bakery, Pavement Coffee House, and their atmosphere was transformed entirely. And really all that stood behind were these structures that we inhabited with connection, relationships, and interaction. But now these structures were just sitting in silence. And it spoke to me as being representative of a transformation in our physical environments, as well as a transformation that was taking place in all aspects of who we are. So for this visual exploration, I decided to focus on the photography that I had gathered during those first few months, creating a card series that focuses solely on these transformed spaces. And here is the card series displayed and how it is supposed to be laid out. So the transformation that I had been documenting over the course of quarantine was the shutdown of these spaces that were normally occupied, again, highlighting that removal of human life and connection. And I really wanted to emphasize that abrupt change that had deeply affected me and I knew affected so many others. Going into the design through the card series, I incorporated the use of that bright yellow green to show this parallel again between positivity and darkness. And the connection I'm trying to showcase here is the idea of the color that relationships and excitement brings along with it. So the incorporation of that yellow really forced me to work with pacing and to incorporate it among the photography again in a way that would allow it to flow through the series. I also worked to play around with white space, pacing, as I mentioned, typography, photography, in hopes to create this connection between the writing and imagery. And all of the writing on the cards references that message of the important role our spaces and environments play in our everyday lives. Here are the cards close up. They're 5x7 in size. And the card on the right is a quote that is on the front of the process book. And it says, "An invisible thread connects those who are destined to meet, regardless of time, place, or circumstance. The thread may stretch or tingle, but will never break." So the incorporation of this quote is there to reference how these are spaces where people are supposed to meet and experience one another, connect with one another. So I use this quote to signify this connection to the importance of spaces and human interaction. And the reason I have it on the cover is because this photography of storefronts is where Realities Unseen began. I'm just going to show some more close-up images here so you guys can see them better. This is Tate again on the left and right. And then we have Boylston Street on the left here and Pavement Coffee House on the right. Tate again on the left and the orange line on the right. And Ruggles Station and the locations of each card. In the next few slides are some photographs that I took of the cards, which are also spreads within the process book. So this is just to highlight some more of the typography, as well as the photographs. The third series of Realities Unseen is Reinvention. And reinvention is the act of experiencing change in which you become entirely new. So in the midst of this chaos that was ensuing, this reinvention of normalcy had been developed in which we were forced to alter the basic ways in how we live. And we drastically reconditioned these little things that we once took for granted, the ways we show affection, the ways we experience and interact with stores and items, the ways we have accustomed our routines, our jobs, our schools to fit new requirements. And the pandemic not only asked us to adjust to this entirely new set of standards, but it asked us to recreate the way in which life looks from the outside in. So for the visual exploration of reinvention, I decided to focus on our environments and stories being completely reinvented. So I chose to take material that I had collected over the past few months through photography, newspaper articles, writing, in order to create a piece that was collage-based. So here's the final design of the collage series. And my goal in this was to take separate elements in order to create an entirely new story. In other words, referencing the idea of what reinvention is. In terms of photography, I chose to focus on how we have reimagined the ways we interact, how we experience spaces, and how we move through life as a whole at this moment. I also tied in the use of neon string to create this representation of a desire to remain connected, while also showing a formation of change as the string has its own movement. So as communities, we are reconfiguring how we once lived, creating a new sense of normalcy and reinventing ourselves in the process. This is some of the photography that is used throughout the series, just so you can see the images standing on their own. And here is each collage a little more in depth. So they are 8 by 8 in size. For card 1, the quote that is here states, "One life on this earth is all we get, whether it is enough or not enough. And the obvious conclusion would seem to be that at the very least, we are fools if we do not live life as fully and bravely and beautifully as we can." Frederick Buechner. I also decided to include some spreads from the process book that shows some more close-up photography to see the details of each collage. I placed them into 8 by 8 shadow boxes. For the second collage, the quote printed onto the vellum is, "A practice of embracing change by reimagining and remaking with what's handed to you, so that you then can manifest it into something new." Again, using photography of people in storefronts and people experiencing life within the pandemic. So we have another image of the shadow box and a close-up of the newspaper article that references seniors and essential workers. And some more detailed shots of the typography. And the third collage, the quote printed says, "Believe with all your heart that how you live your life makes a difference." Kali Bevan. So I incorporated this quote at the end, really again referencing that how we choose to live at this time not only affects us, but affects the people around us. Some more newspaper articles and a close-up of the string. So the fourth series is unpredictability. And unpredictability is what is at the forefront of each day for us. As a world, we woke up one morning to this chaos that was ensuing around us, and no one could have ever predicted this occurrence taking place. But here, many of us are continuing to persevere, living through all of these moments of the unknown. And the question that has remained unanswered for us is, what's next? What will the future bring? Our lives were drastically changed without us even knowing it could happen. And now a lot of us wonder if that change can happen again. So it's really an incredible strength for us to be able to take on each day. So for the visual exploration, I decided to incorporate the medium of watercolor alongside photography. I photographed watercolor flowing against paper, taking a photo each time it took a different turn. And to me, watercolor embodies this meaning of unpredictability, as you really don't know how it will react when it comes into contact with liquid and paper. I decided to add another component into this exploration, taking images of people around me in recent COVID times to connect the meaning of the two together, the idea that people are traveling the unknown path each day. I placed the images onto t-shirts, incorporating the use of punctuation and into the design and type. And shirts are the medium of choice for this exploration, as I really believe the unknown makes many of us feel uneasy. So my goal in this design is to allow people to be enveloped by something that reminds them that we're experiencing the unknown together. Here are images of each t-shirt up close. And I will go a little bit more in depth into the design of each shirt. I strongly highlighted the use of punctuation throughout the designs, and here is the comma, which is representative of the pause that took place several months ago and the pause that we will take as we wait for the next steps. The choice in photography is very purposeful here in how it shows a man patiently staring out the window into the abyss. And you will also see here the words, "Where do we go from here?" which is repeated throughout this series. These are some spreads from the process book, highlighting some more photography and details of the type. The next shirt is the answer. So the period stands to symbolize the answer to our question, where do we go from here? We go forward. And this question is seen along each shirt, playing with the typography and the placement of the words to reiterate the separation and this feeling of being lost from where we're supposed to be. And here we have imagery of watercolor moving across a page and changing shape, referencing that meaning of unpredictability as it's moving through each square. Some more photography of the shirts. The next shirt references the question that we're all wondering the answer to, which is, where do we go from here? And that mark is what symbolizes our frustration and our unanswered thoughts. And this is where the concept in incorporating punctuation really started off, when I used this question mark and I thought, how could I apply this thought process into different punctuation marks? The writing here states, here we are continuing to persevere and live through each moment of the unknown. It includes a photograph of the tea station placed along the watercolor, adding in the meaning of a journey. Some typography highlighting 2020 and the final spread. The last portion, which is the statement, the words that ring true. So I found this quote that correlated with the meaning of this series, and it says, "Be brave enough to travel the unknown path," stated by Rachel Walton. And there is this idea of quotation marks giving voice to a statement that I think a lot of us can say correlates to what we have gone through. And here's an image of someone walking through the tea station with a mask, referencing that travel of the unknown. And the last series is resilience. So to be resilient is to accept the process of adapting in the face of adversity, and to be able to return back to your original shape after being stretched, pulled, and bent. And the pandemic that we are facing currently has definitely challenged that immensely. It has enveloped a lot of us in financial hardship, struggles in our careers and businesses, removal of human interaction and relationships, and especially a decline in our mental health and physical well-being. So it's definitely safe to say that what we've gone through has made life an entire blur. But there is this persistence and perseverance that we have all grasped onto that is truly a beautiful thing. And this is a component that I believe deserves the highest recognition, which is why I chose to place it last in the project. In those first few months, our resilience was really built and stamped into us, becoming an integral part of our identity. So the mixed media design for this piece is connected to the element of communication during the pandemic, as this was a component that I really believe strongly linked us together, since social interaction and face-to-face communication were very limited. So for resilience, I wanted to showcase the ruggedness and rawness of the current climate, layering elements that were directly connected to and representative of those first components that influenced our resilience, the shutdown of everyday life. So I focused on typography from the pandemic storefronts, statements like, "Sorry, we're closed, tough as you are, this is the window, it can be fixed, shattered lives cannot," which was a photograph I took during the Black Lives Matter movements in Boston. And my goal of this piece was to take the aspect of communication that was mainly used through typographical elements and written signage and develop a piece that highlighted our shared strength and resilience, focusing on an aesthetic that was really unpolished and blurred, yet bold. I tied in the use of vintage letterpress blocks, which I used to create the word resilience in this piece, to connect to resilience being stamped into our identity and how it has become a part of each and every one of us in this process and experience. I first made these designs digitally using a collection of photographs that I had taken for a research project that Anne McDonald was working on at the time, taking small portions of them that I felt represented the current climate best. I then printed them onto engineering prints and transferred them onto material. I wanted to use a fabric that I felt represented resilience, which is canvas, to create the rest of the series. So there are 4 different components to this piece, and they are 18 by 26 in size, and they show a continuation in the layering of type and signage, ending with the single word resilience. So as I've expressed, this is a layering of elements, and it starts with this one piece that has context, that has constant reminders in how our routines were shut down so abruptly. So this has a lot of references and meaning in layers of experiences during that time period. The second piece moves into these elements slowly being removed. So there's a little bit less to the second piece, again, still keeping the typography from storefronts and the stamped resilience relevant. And the third portion to this series, I chose to showcase these specific words that I felt deserved to be highlighted a third time, bringing in that neon yellow green, really to reference that this is what created our resilience. So we have 5 elements seen here: tough as you are, a sorry we're closed sign, us together, our doors and our hearts are open, and a sign from the Black Lives Matter movement: this is a window that can be fixed, shattered lives cannot. And lastly, resilience being uncovered and seen. And through this, I wanted to showcase that under the weight of everything we're holding on our shoulders, resilience remains. And it is still there no matter how much it is covered, it still exists. And the last image that I have here is the process book on a mock-up form. So this is what it would have looked like. I will be getting it printed soon, and I'd be happy to send the deans their own copy if they would like to see it. And this is the very last page of the process book that emphasizes everything that Realities Unseen is. Our realities might remain unseen, but they are shared. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation today. I would be happy to take any questions.
The sheer scope of everything you put into that project is, like, I'm still trying to process everything. That was, I mean, the book itself, obviously I would love to see, but just you're seeing your methods and seeing your collages and mixed media. I mean, the scope of the work is just unbelievable. And the concept is, you know, it's interesting looking at these projects, because so many of this semester in particular's projects have been impacted or generated from the pandemic. And just the fact that you were able to conceptualize and then actually make something so tangible in such a short period of time is so impressive.
Thank you.
It's really a beautiful project, and I mean, I would love to be able to look at it more. Something that I thought was really interesting as I was thinking about your project as being part of the pandemic, as someone who's done these presentations before, this is actually a situation where the digital presentation of it, I feel like, allowed viewers to really see these details that you chose to highlight a lot more than we would if it was, you know, 1 or 2 books that we're leafing through as you're trying to present. So the digital format of it was, I think, actually a really great way to show your work as well. I'm trying to think of questions because I want to hear more about it, but it's just, it's such a beautiful project. It's gorgeous.
I really appreciate that so much.
Well, yeah, I'm actually, yeah, it's amazing, and an amazing amount of work. And yes, I think we could see a lot digitally, though I'm also struck by your descriptions about how material it sounds. So I also would love to see it, because it does sound like it was very material work.
Yes, and I'm happy to. The process book, what I showed in the presentation are a lot of the pages from the process book and some additions, including the close-ups of the cards so you guys can see them. And there are the actual physical objects as well. So I'll be taking those back with me to Boston, and I'd be happy to bring those in and show you all. But it was very interesting to have this opportunity to do it digitally, because, you know, I did have moments where I was thinking, how would this, you know, be presented in person and really understood without seeing all the details in the process. So everything happens for a reason. So it was it was a great opportunity to be able to show it in this way.
So I do have a question for you.
Yes.
As all of the way you're speaking about it, in terms of, you know, it's obviously, you know, beautiful work, and we'd love to see it. But I'm really interested in how this process, it means that so much of your own experience of the pandemic was being focused through your work on this project.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested on you stepping back a little bit from the project and talking about how you think it means that you were experiencing the pandemic in a very self-conscious way.
Yes.
Because you were self-consciously processing the experience of the pandemic in a way that I mean, in a way everybody's sort of like, wow, this is happening to us. But I don't know that people were so self-consciously processing it the way you were. So I'm just curious about if you've thought about that, if you've talked about it with your peers, and about how you think that has affected how you have processed thinking about the pandemic.
Yes. So I actually had a moment, I think it was halfway through the semester, where I was speaking with Professor Daryl Smith, and I really did have this realization that I was experiencing all of these things while I was working on this project. So I was living through all of those moments of patience, resilience, unpredictability, and if anything, it made it easier to cope with as I was going through the pandemic, because I was able to reflect on these words that I think really carried me through that time. And the reason that I created this project is because I wanted to have something that people can look at and highlight that slight positivity that really, again, helped me as well. So it really was so interesting. And I remember hearing, like, I had moments where I was watching, it was during the elections, and I heard people saying, we all have to be patient. We all have to be, calm and patient during this time. And I was working on my posters and I was like, oh, well, there's that word. So it was so interesting to, hear these words kind of coming up. I was watching an episode of Grey's Anatomy last week and they were talking about resilience. And I was like, wow, this really just, it all kind of connected for me towards the middle and finally towards the end. But it really has been an experience of kind of helping me cope through this time and really looking at these 5 words that I feel like are not, people don't see or understand about themselves. So it's not only for me to read it and see, oh, I'm resilient, I'm patient, it's something that I want people to look at and understand that this is a part of every single one of us right now.
Yeah, it does seem though you personally have taken it a step further by embodying it yourself, like not just through thinking about patience, but through embodying the thought of patience through artistic work. So it seems like a project of resilience through a sort of embodied artistic practice. So, I don't know, there's something really intriguing there that you described, but you almost didn't even really talk about. And it seems quite profound. So I'm just interested in it.
I think we had a question from Anne McDonald.
Hi, Olivianne. Congratulations in really, again, as Elizabeth or Dean Hudson said, embodying this work. And I think Daryl is a perfect person who, as your advisor, because he and I talk about this invisible way of understanding the world, or understanding the things that are invisible in the world. And I think the fact that you were already out there gathering the emptiness in Tati and the places you went early on was really haunting. But I think this idea of making to help ourselves or help ourselves process this, that's in some ways, I'm really glad you used pieces that you might have gathered on that research project that I was doing, had you doing for different reasons. And I love that you owned them and took them further. And I wish we were, I think especially the t-shirt piece where you said that is about this exchange. That one really starts to see that you've left just your own expression and given the rest of us a gift if we could be wearing these and exhibiting what we're going through. So I appreciate that you looked at all those modalities of different ways the work could come into the world. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.